Cheerful and happy is the atmosphere at the Eilbacher Hof, but also earnest and meticulously precise. When horse specialists come to a training, the big riding arena turns into a therapy and learning center. Horses help people overcome anxiety and depression, as well as enable people to learn new ways to master their problems. By interacting with horses, people can gain new insights about themselves and learn about their own behaviors. They can evaluate their interactions and draw conclusions about their daily lives. A therapeutic method that builds people's capacity. The trainer's expectation is high, especially since they have to fight against the preconception that their method to strengthen self-esteem and self-confidence is nothing short of quackery. To participate in this learning process, one does not need to be a horse lover. Riding is never part of this program. Participants do not need to have prior horse experience, nor do they need to know anything about horses. The horses also don't need any specialized training.
Ganz wichtig bei Pferden ist, dass
Horses live in social settings, she says. They communicate with and amongst each other and respond to each other. Each human being who enters their herd will be looked at to see how or if he or she fits into their herd and what type of person with what characteristics he or she has. Depending on how the person behaves, the horses mirror that behavior and react to it. They have the innate ability to react to nonverbal communication, to not only perceive it, but to read it much better than we humans can. Considering that communication is up to 90% nonverbal, it is quite a lot of information the horses perceive and react to, which provides us with the information about the participants. To learn with and through the horses requires teamwork. There are 3 members to a team, at least 1 horse, 1 mental health specialist, and 1 equine specialist. With participants coming from all parts of the world, equine-assisted training at the Eilbacher Hof is offered in German as well as in English.
So yeah, I noticed at one point that the 2 big horses, the 2 big brown horses, had kind of come together and put their noses together and then walked off. So can you guys just share what was going on at that time? Or?
First, horses and humans get to know each other. Horses recognize moods, psychological dispositions, even fears humans might experience, and they react to them without making much noise. Through this method, people can learn how to reduce their fears, not just those they might experience in this arena, but also those they might feel in their regular life, workplace, or family. Through this learning experience, personalities can be strengthened and developed. The horse helps by responding to the people.
I started it the way I always started.
If a participant is able to move the animal or lead it across an obstacle, success appears to be measurable. But success is not the objective. Instead, the objective is to gain a first impression and glimpse into the inner world of the participants.
I get it.
Because then I could start to move after the session. I had a very quiet evening, and for me, yesterday was perfect. Not talking.
During the second part, participants are to complete a task which is given by the facilitators. The slogan is learning by doing, and what at first appears simple proves to be far more difficult. In this activity, participants are to change the location of the big animals. Instructions are deliberately vague and leave much room for interpretation. The unspoken expectation might be for participants to listen closely to these instructions. Teamwork, precision attempts. Take one or more horses, she says. Put them somewhere. It was not said that each of us has to take their own horses. Okay, we can do it or leave it. It was not specified to take 1, 2, 3, or 4. It was not mentioned to take or not to take a halter. When I know what it's all about, she says, I can integrate it and use it as a building block in a bigger process. But when I don't understand it, it just stays in the room, so I just have to know it. Participants are allowed to touch, push, or pull the horses. They may talk with them or explain things to them. They may clap their hands. All these actions may get the horses to do what the humans want them to do. How participants go about this, courageously or anxiously, how horses and participants interact, stubbornly or willingly, what participants and facilitators observe. The sum of all these experiences, from seemingly playful interactions, makes an analysis of the equine-assisted learning process possible. This analysis may become part of a processing led by the mental health specialist.
Man kommt mit der Erwartung her, gewisse Themen oder...
You come here, she says, with the expectation to solve certain themes or problems. I guess I'll just call them themes.
Mit der Erwartung da herein, in diese wunderschöne Halle. Und auf einmal
And you enter into a beautiful arena with the expectations, and suddenly they are no longer on your mind. Suddenly you are only here, and one experiences things with the horses, completes certain tasks. The subject, theme, is still in the back of your mind, but not on your radar. But during the course of being here, it gets worked on and solved, or simply worked on.
Dinge erlebt, bearbeitet und aufgelöst. Oder aufgelöst. Einfach bearbeitet.
No task in the arena is like another. Just as humans are different, horses act and react differently too. Their moods fluctuate. Not everybody experiences the same things the same way. Due to deliberately vague instructions, participants may interpret things differently as well. Not everybody's perception of his or her action is the same. Even the horse's behavior may be perceived and interpreted differently. A therapeutic model that follows one rigid pattern is not likely to help clients reach their goals. Active participation is a must. What at first may have been experienced as frustration may later be seen as success. The facilitators stay on the outskirts of the arena. They are mainly observers of these interactions. Primary focus is on the process, not the goal. What matters is how do participants go about solving a problem. Facilitators do not give verbal feedback. Instead, feedback is provided through and by the horses when they respond to participants' body language. One of the core principles is that each participant can find his or her own solution. The facilitators provide the stage on which participants can experience and explore their own thoughts and feelings in an emotionally safe environment. The horses move freely in the riding ring as if they were out on pasture. Participants are encouraged to take care of their own safety, and experts assure there is hardly any risk. If a horse, which can weigh up to 1,000 pounds, steps on a person's foot, it's more the person's responsibility than that of the animal.
Es ist eine Therapieform, in der man mit Pferden arbeitet.
It is a therapeutic method in which one works with horses, and one provides safety by only choosing horses which are not known to bite or kick, she says. We only use horses which are used to working with humans.
Mit aggressivem Verhalten zu den Pferden kommt, dann reagieren die Pferde drauf. Es kann jetzt sein, dass sie einfach weggehen und die Distanz suchen.
When a very aggressive person with very aggressive behavior meets the horses, they react to it. It can be that they simply walk away and keep their distance, or it can be that if somebody is really handling them aggressively and does not stop and ignores all the horse's reactions, that he might get kicked. And in this situation, it is the horse's reaction to the human's behavior, not anything malicious by the horse.
Eine Bösartigkeit des Pferdes.
In this next activity, participants are asked to move the horses over an obstacle. The facilitators are requesting that participants move the horses without talking, bribing, or other verbal exchanges. Gestures and hand signals replace verbal language.
Die Wissenschaft widerspricht sich da.
Science sometimes contradicts itself, she says. Communication is based between 60 and 80% on body language. Horses, as prey animals, are able to read body language. Typically, they're herd members, but they also respond that way to people's body language. A person who is secure in his or her demeanor can effectively do something with the horses. A horse will react to the smallest signs, so if I'm really anxious, no matter how well I can hide or mask it from my environment, I will not be able to hide it from the horses. Question: how often do I need to come here to become more self-confident? The answer to that question depends on my personal goals. Some people only require some food for thought, others want to have this experience more often. In equine-assisted psychotherapy, it is essential to focus on the areas people struggle with. It can take up to 6 months, it can be finished in 6 weeks, but it can also take up to 2 years. If you are referring to manager trainings, it's typically 1 or 2 day seminars, typically a one-time event that gets thought processing going. During this next activity, the horses are to be taken to marked areas at the end of the arena in as little time as possible. Instructions.
Take a horse or horses and move them or it across a or several jumps as many times as you want to.
Again, participants are instructed not to speak. The horses are not to be touched, pushed, or pulled. These are the instructions. One additional assignment is that the group has to stay together and that only one person is allowed to make contact with the horses. The group has to remain between 2 designated markers. All kinds of items can be used as markers: big balls, hula hoop rings, pool noodles, or buckets. The facilitators gave the instruction that only one participant at a time can attempt to move the horses. There is no exact time set for the group to complete this task. When suddenly a time limit is called, participants have to switch out, no matter how far he or she has gotten in the individual task. Standing between the buckets by the window, the group observes how one young woman from their group attempts to make contact with a pony. The pony is at the end of the arena. The way there is quite long. The pony has a mind of its own, and time is ticking. The next participant is also not able, in the provided time frame, to get the horse to move into the designated area. The third participant fails as well. The distance across the arena has to be overcome. With time pressure in the back of her mind, the task is broken off. This woman has more success, maybe because the distance to the horse is shorter, and thus there is more time. The turning point comes when all participants realize they can deal with their conflict of time and distance differently. The group itself changes its location. The participants move closer to the horses. They simply take the buckets with them. The facilitators only stated that the group had to remain between the buckets. They said nothing about not being able to pick them up and move them. Closer to the designated spots and horses, the task is now accomplished more easily, although it is still not certain that each attempt succeeds. Once again, the facilitators do not pay any attention to the accomplished success. They want to know, how do participants react in each situation? How do they process their experience? In the following group processing, participants share their intentions, how they want to treat the horses, and how they handled them in reality. Also how they felt in this situation. Feelings play a role in the interaction with the horses because underlying feelings show themselves in people's body language.
Dann war eine Situation am Schluss, die kam mir sehr inkongruent vor und sehr unwirklich.
There was one situation at the very end that appeared to be just incongruent and didn't seem to fit.
Und zwar, als wir alle das Pony gestreichelt haben.
They all caressed the pony. The group, which was observing, shares their perspective as well. Their conclusions and interpretations can create a completely different picture than the one experienced by participants. At the polls, wishes do not always get met or fulfilled. When the horses have their own ideas, tasks need to be modified into recognizing your disappointment and learning to cope with it. Additional motivation to reach this insight might come out of unexpected horse behaviors. Poles which were previously avoided are suddenly jumped over repeatedly just for fun. Bottom line, equine-assisted learning seldomly produces huge leaps, but rather helps with small and steady steps. The mental health specialist ties into those steps and further deepens the therapeutic experience.